In the vast darkness between stars, where even the most advanced civilizations fear to tread, there exists a truth that echoes through every corner of the galaxy. When all hope dies, when gods abandon their faithful, and when even death seems like mercy, that's when humans show up. They don't come as conquerors or saviors by design. They simply arrive, usually at the worst possible moment, with their strange inability to accept that some things are impossible. Today, you'll witness why the Galactic Council's most seasoned ambassadors whisper a single phrase when discussing humanity's place in the universe. They don't know when to quit. What you're about to hear happened in a forgotten system where a dying alien warrior learned that sometimes the difference between extinction and survival isn't advanced technology or divine intervention. It's a species too stubborn to let others die alone. The purple blood had stopped flowing hours ago, congealing in thick pools around Zara's broken form. She lay crumpled against the twisted wreckage of what had once been her patrol ship, the metal hull now serving as both shelter and tomb on this desolate moon. Her 4 arms, each the length of a human torso, sprawled awkwardly across the rocky terrain. 2 of them bent at unnatural angles where bones had snapped during the crash. The Kytherian warrior had survived 3 standard days since impact. 3 days of searing pain that shot through her crystalline skeleton every time she attempted movement. 3 days of watching her transparent blue skin slowly fade to a dull gray as her body's energy reserves dwindled. 3 days of knowing that no rescue would come to this forgotten rock orbiting a dying star. Zara's people, the Kytherians, were among the most resilient species in the known galaxy. Their bodies could survive in vacuum for short periods. Their bones were harder than most metals, and their healing factor rivaled that of the legendary Terran salamanders. But even Kytherian endurance had limits, and she had reached hers. The crash had been unavoidable. Her long-range scout vessel had been pursuing a Vorthan raider through the Kepler debris field when the enemy ship's desperate gambit paid off. A gravitational mine, ancient and forgotten, had torn her ship from normal space and flung it toward this barren moon with the force of a stellar wind. The Vorthan ship had escaped. Zara had not been so fortunate. Her ship's emergency beacon had been destroyed in the impact, along with the main communication array and life support systems. The backup power cells had died on the 2nd day, plunging her into the eternal twilight of this tidally locked world. Now, only the faint glow of the distant red giant provided any illumination, casting everything in shades of crimson and shadow. The flies had found her on the 1st day. She didn't know what species they were or how they had evolved on this lifeless rock, but they were persistent, small, black creatures with iridescent wings that buzzed around her wounds with single-minded determination. She had tried to brush them away initially, but her strength was failing, and they always returned. Now they were her only companions in this place of slow death. Zara closed her eyes and tried to remember her home world, Kithros Prime, with its floating crystal cities and silver seas. She thought of her bondmate, Sean, who would never know what happened to her. She thought of their younglings, barely past their first molting, who would grow up believing their mother had simply vanished into the void like so many warriors before her. The irony wasn't lost on her that she, who had survived the Battle of Crimson Nebula and the Siege of Outpost 7, would die alone on an unnamed moon from nothing more dramatic than equipment failure and bad luck. There would be no songs sung of this death, no monuments raised. She would simply disappear, another casualty of the endless conflicts that plague the galaxy. A distant rumble made her open her eyes. At first, she thought it might be seismic activity. This moon was geologically unstable, and tremors were common. But as the sound grew louder, she realized it was something else entirely. The deep, rhythmic thrumming of spacecraft engines cutting through the thin atmosphere. Hope flickered in her chest, weak but persistent. Perhaps a Kytherian rescue ship had finally tracked her emergency beacon before it failed. Perhaps the Galactic Patrol had decided to investigate this system after all. She tried to lift her head to scan the rust-colored sky, but found she lacked the strength for even that simple movement. The engine noise grew louder, closer. She could make out distinct sounds now. The whine of repulsors, the hiss of atmosphere processors, the mechanical clunk of landing gear extending. Whatever was landing, it was big, much bigger than her small scout vessel had been. The sound reached a crescendo and then began to fade as the engines wound down. Zara estimated the landing site to be perhaps half a kilometer away, behind a ridge of jagged rocks. Close enough that whoever had landed might find her if they bothered to look. Far enough that she couldn't reach them even if she had full use of her limbs. She lay still and listened. The flies continued their lazy orbits around her wounds, occasionally landing to feed on the dry blood. In the distance, she could hear new sounds, the heavy clang of a cargo ramp lowering, voices calling to each other in a language she didn't recognize, the rhythmic tread of boots on stone. The voices grew closer, and Zara realized with growing confusion that there seemed to be only one or two individuals approaching. If this was a rescue mission, where was the full team? Where were the medical scanners, the search drones, the coordinated sweep patterns that any competent rescue operation would employ? A shadow fell across her face, and Zara forced her eyes open to look up at her potential rescuer. The creature standing above her was unlike anything in her experience. It stood upright on two legs like a Kytherian, but there the similarity ended. Its skin was a pale, pinkish color, not transparent like her own, and it was covered in some kind of artificial hide that looked both flexible and protective. The being had only two arms, which seemed absurdly inadequate for any kind of complex manipulation, and its head was small and round with two forward-facing eyes. But it was the expression in those eyes that caught her attention. Not the cold calculation she might expect from a scavenger or the professional detachment of a rescue worker. Instead, she saw something that made no sense in this context. Genuine concern. "Well, hello there," the being said, its voice carrying an odd musical quality. "Looks like you've had yourself quite a day." The creature's words were being translated by some kind of universal device, but the tone came through clearly. Gentle, almost casual, as if finding dying aliens on barren moons was a routine occurrence. Zara tried to speak, but found her voice had failed her. Only a weak, clicking sound emerged from her throat, the Kytherian equivalent of a dying whisper. The being knelt beside her, moving with surprising grace for something with only two legs. "Easy there, friend. Don't try to talk just yet. Let me get a look at what we're dealing with." It pulled a device from somewhere in its artificial hide and began scanning her with beams of soft light. The device chirped and whistled in ways that suggested it was providing information, though none of the sounds meant anything to Zara. "Kytherian, looks like," the being murmured to itself. "Crystalline bone structure, quadrasymmetric nervous system, silicon-based blood chemistry. Definitely not from around here." It looked down at her with those strange, forward-facing eyes. "Lucky for you, I've got medical protocols for your species loaded in my database. Unlucky for you, those protocols are about 3 days out of date for your current condition." The creature stood and called over its shoulder in that same musical language. Another voice answered from the distance, and soon a second being appeared. This one was slightly larger, but otherwise similar to the first. "How bad is she?" the newcomer asked. "Bad," the first one replied. "Multiple fractures, severe dehydration, probably internal bleeding. If she were human, I'd say she had maybe an hour left. Being Kytherian might buy her a little more time, but not much. Can we move her? Not without killing her. We'll have to work here." The first being looked around at the desolate landscape. Not exactly ideal surgical conditions, but I've worked in worse places. Zara watched in growing amazement as the two beings began unpacking equipment from containers they had brought with them. Medical scanners, portable power sources, what looked like surgical tools designed for multiple species. This wasn't a chance encounter or a scavenging operation. These beings had come prepared for exactly this kind of situation. The first being noticed her watching and knelt down again. "I know you can't talk right now, but I need you to listen. My name is Sarah Chun, and this is my partner Marcus Webb. We're with Terran Search and Rescue, and we're here to help you. I'm going to give you something for the pain, and then we're going to see about putting you back together." Terran. Zara had heard that name before, though she couldn't immediately place where. Something about a new species that had recently joined the Galactic Council under unusual circumstances. Sarah was doing something with one of her medical devices, preparing some kind of injection. "Now, I have to warn you, this is going to hurt worse before it gets better. Your physiology is different enough from ours that I have to use a broad-spectrum cellular regenerator, and those tend to make everything feel like it's on fire for the first few minutes. But it's better than the alternative. The injection, when it came, was delivered through a device that seemed to penetrate her skin without actually piercing it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, as Sarah had warned, every nerve in Zara's body erupted into agony. She would have screamed if she had the breath for it. Her vision went white, then black, then filled with colors that had no names. Her forearms convulsed, and she could feel her broken bones grinding against each other as her muscles spasmed involuntarily. But underneath the pain, something else was happening. Warmth was spreading through her body, starting from the injection site and radiating outward. Her crystalline bones, which had felt like shattered glass for 3 days, began to resonate with a low, musical hum. The cellular regenerator was working, forcing her Kytherian physiology to repair itself at an accelerated rate. "That's it," Sarah said, her voice seeming to come from very far away. "Just ride it out. Your body knows what to do." The pain began to recede, replaced by a tingling sensation that was almost pleasant by comparison. Zara could feel her bones knitting back together, her torn flesh regenerating, her depleted energy reserves slowly refilling. It was like being reborn. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Zara found she could move her head. She turned to look at Sarah, who was monitoring her with various devices while Marcus set up what appeared to be a portable shelter. "Why?" Zara managed to croak, her voice still weak, but functional. "Why help me?" Sarah looked up from her readings. "Why not? I am Kytherian. You are." Zara paused, searching her memory. "Terran, our species have no formal relations. No treaties. No obligations. So there's no logical reason for you to risk resources or personnel to aid me. No political advantage. No economic benefit." Sarah was quiet for a moment, then set down her scanner and looked directly into Zara's eyes. That's probably the most depressing question I've been asked all week. And last week I had to explain to a Centauran diplomat why we couldn't just let his entire colony die, because the rescue operation wasn't cost-effective. She stood and walked a few steps away, gazing out the desolate landscape. "My species has a saying, we're all just walking each other home. Doesn't matter what planet you're from, what you look like, what gods you pray to. In the end, we're all just trying to make it through another day in a universe that seems pretty determined to kill us all." Marcus looked up from assembling the shelter. Also, Sarah gets cranky when she has to explain to the brass why she left someone to die when she could have helped. "I do not get cranky," Sarah protested. "I get righteously indignant. There's a difference." Despite everything, Zara found herself making the clicking sound that passed for laughter among her people. These Terrans were strange creatures indeed. The cellular regenerator continued its work over the next several hours. Zara's bones grew strong again. Her organs repaired themselves, and her energy levels climbed steadily toward normal. Sarah monitored the process constantly, making small adjustments to the treatment as needed. As Zara's strength returned, she was able to sit up and get her first good look at her rescuers. They were smaller than she had initially thought, probably no taller than a young Kytherian. Their skin had a healthy glow to it, and their movements were quick and efficient. Everything about them suggested a species that had evolved under high-stress conditions, constantly ready to adapt to new challenges. "How did you know to come here?" Zara asked when Sarah paused in her work. "We didn't," Sarah replied. "We were responding to a distress beacon from a cargo hauler that got hit by pirates about 6 systems away. By the time we got there, the crew had already been rescued by a galactic patrol ship. But our long-range scanners picked up wreckage signatures from this system, so we figured we'd take a look. You investigated wreckage signatures that could have been centuries old just because they were there?" Marcus laughed. "You're starting to understand humans. We have trouble leaving well enough alone." "It is inefficient," Zara observed. "Probably," Sarah agreed. "But it's who we are. My grandfather used to say that efficiency is just another word for giving up too early." As the red giant set behind the horizon, plunging the moon into deeper darkness, the portable shelter's environmental systems came online. Warm, breathable air began circulating, and soft lighting made the space feel almost cozy despite their hostile surroundings. Zara found herself genuinely curious about these beings who had appeared from nowhere to save her life. "Tell me about your species." I know little of Terrans beyond the basic diplomatic briefings. Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances. What do you want to know? Sarah asked. Everything, Zara replied. I have time, and it appears I owe you a debt that may take some explaining to discharge properly. You don't owe us anything, Marcus said firmly. This is just what we do. But as the night deepened and the medical treatment continued, Sarah began to talk. She told Zara about Earth, a blue and green world orbiting a young yellow star. She spoke of humans as a species that had evolved as persistent hunters, creatures who survived not through strength or speed, but through sheer stubborn refusal to give up. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy, Sarah explained as she checked Zara's bone density readings. Not the smartest, not the fastest, not the most technologically advanced. But we have one trait that seems to set us apart. We're really, really bad at accepting that something can be done. She gestured to the medical equipment surrounding them. This regenerator? Everyone said it was impossible to build one that worked across species lines. Too many variables, too many unknown factors. So we spent 30 years figuring out how to do it anyway. And your search and rescue operations? Most species limit themselves to recovering their own people, Marcus explained. Makes sense from a resource allocation standpoint. But humans decided that wasn't good enough. So we built ships that could reach anywhere in known space within 72 hours, trained our crews to work with any known form of life, and basically told the universe that nobody dies alone if we can help it. That seems, Zara searched for the right word, impractical. Completely, Sarah agreed cheerfully. The Galactic Council told us it was economically unsustainable and strategically pointless. They were right, of course. We do it anyway. As the night wore on, Zara learned more about these strange beings who had saved her life. She learned that humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, but had already spread throughout the local galactic arm with a speed that amazed older civilizations. She learned that they were simultaneously one of the youngest spacefaring species and one of the most active in interspecies diplomacy. Most surprisingly, she learned that they were apparently incapable of accepting that any problem was truly unsolvable. We had a situation last year, Marcus told her as he prepared a nutrition supplement designed for Kytherian physiology. Whole planet was about to get swallowed by its star-going nova. 80 million Zalakians and every other species in the sector had written them off as casualties of natural disaster. What did you do? Built the biggest evacuation fleet in galactic history and moved them all to a new world in 6 months, Sarah said matter-of-factly. Took every ship we had and a few we borrowed. Nearly bankrupted our government and definitely violated about 20 different interstellar treaties. And the Galactic Council's response? They gave us a formal censure and then quietly updated their emergency response protocols to include impossible evacuation scenarios, Marcus replied with a grin. Zara absorbed this information in silence. In her culture, such reckless expenditure of resources for non-kin would be considered a form of mental illness. Yet these humans spoke of it as if it were the most natural thing in the galaxy. I do not understand your species, she admitted finally. That's okay, Sarah said. Most of the time, we don't understand ourselves either. The medical treatment was nearly complete. Zara's bones had fully healed, her organs were functioning normally, and her energy levels were approaching optimal. She would be able to travel within a few hours, though Sarah insisted on monitoring her for any delayed reactions to the cellular regenerator. As the artificial dawn began to brighten the shelter's interior, Zara realized she felt better than she had in years. Not just healed from her injuries, but somehow renewed in a way that went beyond the physical. Your regenerator, she said to Sarah. It does more than repair damage. It optimizes, Sarah confirmed. Fixes not just what's broken, but what was wearing out. You're probably in the best health you've been in since your last molting cycle. This technology, it could revolutionize medicine across the galaxy. It will, eventually, we're sharing it with anyone who wants it, free of charge. Zara stared at her. Free of charge? Technology of this value? Knowledge belongs to everyone, Marcus said simply. That's another one of those human things that drives the other species crazy. As the red giant rose again over the horizon, painting the landscape in shades of amber and Rose, Sarah began packing up the medical equipment. Their ship, she explained, had been monitoring the surrounding systems and had detected the approach of a Kytherian search vessel. "Your people found you after all," Marcus observed. "Looks like they'll be here in about 6 hours." Zara felt a complex mix of emotions. Joy at the prospect of going home, certainly, but also something like regret that her time with these remarkable beings was ending. "Will I see you again?" she asked. "Maybe," Sarah said. "The galaxy's a big place, but we humans have a tendency to turn up in unexpected places. Usually when something's gone horribly wrong," Marcus added helpfully. As they waited for the Kytherian rescue ship, Zara found herself studying her unlikely saviors with new appreciation. They were small, fragile beings from a young world, lacking the natural advantages that most successful species possessed. By all logic, they should have remained safely in their own system, content to develop their civilization in isolation. Instead, they had chosen to fling themselves into the vastness of space with nothing but their stubborn refusal to accept limitations. They had taken on challenges that older, wiser species avoided, tackled problems that others deemed unsolvable, and somehow managed to make it all work through sheer bloody-minded determination. As the Kytherian ship descended through the thin atmosphere, its sleek hull gleaming in the red sunlight, Zara realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history, the emergence of a species that simply didn't know when to quit. And somehow, lying there among the flies and the wreckage on a forgotten moon, that seemed like the most wonderful thing in the universe. The rescue ship Crystal's edge settled onto the rocky surface with the practiced precision of experienced pilots. Zara watched through the shelter's transparent walls as the familiar angular lines of Kytherian engineering gleamed in the alien sunlight. The ship was beautiful in its efficiency, every curve and surface designed for optimal performance with no wasted space or unnecessary ornamentation. Captain Thex emerged from the vessel first, his massive frame moving with the careful grace of a career spacer. Behind him came medical specialist Vorn and engineer Kess, their equipment floating in neat formations courtesy of their portable gravity manipulators. Standard Kytherian rescue protocol, executed with textbook precision. Sarah and Marcus had withdrawn to a respectful distance, giving the Kytherian crew space to work while remaining close enough to provide assistance if needed. Zara noticed that the humans seemed completely at ease despite being vastly outnumbered by beings who could crush them without effort. Either they were very trusting or very confident in their own capabilities. "Warrior Zara," Captain Thex said as he approached the shelter, his 4 arms spreading in the traditional gesture of relief and welcome. "The fleet mourns your presumed loss and celebrates your survival." "I lived through the intervention of these Terrans," Zara replied, indicating Sarah and Marcus. "Without their aid, my essence would have returned to the crystal." Thex turned his attention to the humans, his large eyes studying them with professional interest. "I am Captain Thex of the Kytherian Defense Fleet. The hegemony is in your debt for the preservation of our warrior." Sarah stepped forward with that easy confidence that seemed to characterize her species. "Sarah Chun, Terran Search and Rescue. No debt required, Captain. This is what we do." "Nevertheless, proper acknowledgement must be made," Thex insisted. "Warrior Zara is a decorated veteran of 17 campaigns. Her loss would have diminished our martial capabilities significantly." Medical specialist Vorn was scanning Zara with his equipment, his readings displaying in holographic projections that floated in the air around him. His expression grew increasingly puzzled as the scan progressed. "Captain," Vorn said quietly, "these readings are unusual." "Explain." "Warrior Zara's cellular structure shows signs of recent catastrophic trauma, but her current condition exceeds optimal baselines in multiple categories. Bone density is 15% above normal, neural conductivity is enhanced, and her healing factor has been permanently improved." Thex looked from Vorn to the humans. "What did you do to her?" "Standard medical treatment," Sarah replied evenly. "Cellular regeneration therapy to repair the damage from her crash." Cellular regeneration is theoretical technology. The hegemony's best scientists have been unable to overcome the species-specific limitations. Marcus shrugged. "We're stubborn that way." kept working on it until it worked. Vorn completed his scan and approached Sarah. May I examine your medical equipment? From a scientific perspective, this represents a significant breakthrough. Of course, Sarah said, leading him to their portable medical station. Fair warning, though, the technical specifications are pretty complex. We had to solve some fundamental problems with quantum biology that most species consider impossible. As Vorn began studying the human equipment with growing amazement, Captain Thex continued his conversation with Zara. She found herself in the unusual position of trying to explain human behavior to a fellow Kytherian, and discovering that she lacked the proper conceptual framework to do so. They came here by accident, she told Thex. They were responding to a distress call in another system, but when they found nothing there, they decided to investigate our crash site simply because it existed. Inefficient, Thex observed. I said the same thing. They agreed, but seemed to consider that irrelevant. And they rendered aid despite having no obligation to do so? None whatsoever. No treaties, no diplomatic agreements, no mutual benefit. They helped because they could. Thex was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Like all Kytherians, he approached problems from a logical, hierarchical perspective. Actions had purposes, resources had values, decisions had justifications. The human approach violated every principle of rational behavior. Perhaps, he said finally, their species has different evolutionary pressures that make such behavior adaptive. Engineer Kess had been examining the wreckage of Zara's scout ship, and now she approached with her analysis complete. The damage is total, she reported. Power systems destroyed, hull integrity compromised, navigation computers melted. Recovery is not feasible. Understood, Thex replied. We will retrieve Warrior Zara and depart. Actually, Sarah interrupted, if you're interested, we could offer to transport Zara back to Kytherian space ourselves. Our ship is faster than most, and we're heading in that general direction anyway. The offer caught everyone off guard. Zara watched as Thex tried to process the implications of allowing a warrior of the hegemony to travel on an alien vessel. The security considerations alone should have made the idea unthinkable. That is generous, Thex said carefully, but Warrior Zara has been presumed dead for several days. Her return will require proper ceremonial protocols. No problem, Marcus said. We can transfer her to your ship wherever you want. Or if you prefer, your escort can follow us back. Escort. Sarah gestured toward the sky where, now that Zara knew to look for them, she could make out the faint outlines of additional ships maintaining position just beyond the moon's thin atmosphere. The 3 battle cruisers and the dreadnought that had been watching us since you landed. Captain Thex's 4 arms went rigid with surprise. Kytherian stealth technology was among the best in the galaxy, and their escort ships should have been completely invisible to primitive human sensors. Our scanners are pretty good, Sarah explained with a slight smile. Don't worry, we're not offended. If I were in your position, I'd have brought backup too. The casual way she dismissed the presence of enough firepower to sterilize a small planet only added to Thex's confusion about these strange beings. Either they were supremely confident in their own defenses, or they genuinely didn't consider the Kytherians to be a threat. Medical specialist Vorn had finished his examination of the human equipment and was now staring at Sarah with something approaching awe. This regeneration technology, it doesn't just repair damage. It optimizes genetic expression, eliminates accumulated cellular errors, and enhances natural healing responses. The theoretical implications are staggering. Feel free to study it, Sarah said. All our medical technology is open source. The schematics are available through the Galactic Information Network. Open source. Vorn repeated the unfamiliar term. Free to use, modify, and distribute, Marcus explained. We figure medical knowledge is too important to keep locked up behind patents and licensing fees. Zara watched Vorn struggle with this concept. In Kytherian society, technological advancement was closely guarded by the appropriate guilds and distributed according to strict hierarchical principles. The idea of simply giving away revolutionary medical technology was as alien to him as breathing water. This technology could extend lifespans across multiple species by centuries, Vorn said slowly. The economic value would be irrelevant, Sarah finished. Healthcare is a right, not a commodity. Captain Thex had heard enough. Warrior Zara, if you're medically cleared for travel, we should return to the fleet immediately. Command will want a full debriefing. Zara looked around at the humans who had saved her life, the Kytherian rescue team that had come to retrieve her, and the barren landscape where she had nearly died alone. So much had changed in just a few hours that she felt like a different person than the one who had crashed here. Captain, she said formally, I request permission to accept the Terran's offer of transport to Kytherian space. For what purpose? Cultural exchange, she replied, though even as she said it, she knew it was inadequate. How could she explain that she wanted to understand beings who saved lives for no reason other than that lives needed saving? Thex considered this request carefully. Zara was a senior warrior with considerable autonomy in her assignments. If she believed this cultural exchange had military value, he was inclined to trust her judgment. Very well, he said finally. The escort will accompany you to ensure your safety. That's really not necessary, Sarah began, but Thex cut her off with a gesture. It is necessary for my peace of mind, he said firmly. Warrior Zara is valuable to the hegemony. As the Kytherian rescue team prepared to depart, Vorn approached Sarah one more time. The regeneration technology, there must be some cost, some price for this advancement. Sarah thought about this seriously before answering. The biggest cost was time. 30 years of research, thousands of failed experiments, uncounted hours of frustration. Oh, and Marcus lost his left arm to an early prototype. Lost his arm? Vorn looked at Marcus with new interest. Marcus rolled up his sleeve to reveal what looked like perfectly normal human flesh and bone. Prototype regenerator had a feedback loop that liquefied everything below the elbow. Sarah rebuilt it from scratch using the same technology we just used on Zara. Works better than the original, actually. The casual way he discussed losing and regrowing a limb left Vorn speechless. Among Kytherians, such an injury would result in either death or permanent disability. The idea of treating it as a minor setback in the pursuit of knowledge was profoundly alien. As the crystal's edge lifted off and disappeared beyond the horizon, Zara found herself alone with the humans again. But this time, she was looking at them not as mysterious saviors, but as representatives of something entirely new in the galaxy. A species that had chosen compassion as their defining characteristic. Your ship, she said as they walked toward the human vessel. What is it called? Stubborn Hope, Sarah replied. Our captain named her. Said it represented the human approach to problem solving. The ship was larger than Zara had expected, roughly the size of a Kytherian frigate, but with completely different design principles. Where Kytherian ships were all angles and crystalline perfection, the Stubborn Hope was curved and organic-looking, as if it had grown rather than been built. Captain Rodriguez met them at the airlock, a compact woman with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes. I take it our patient is ready for transport. All healed up and ready to travel, Sarah confirmed. Captain Rodriguez, this is Warrior Zara of the Kytherian Defense Fleet. Zara, Captain Maria Rodriguez. Welcome aboard, Warrior, Rodriguez said, extending her hand in what Zara recognized as the human greeting gesture. I understand you're interested in learning about human customs during the trip home. If that is acceptable, Zara replied, awkwardly attempting to shake hands with one of her four arms. More than acceptable. It's been a while since we had a chance to show off for someone from outside the Sol system. The interior of the Stubborn Hope was unlike any spacecraft Zara had ever seen. The corridors were wide and curved, with soft lighting that adjusted automatically to create a sense of warmth and openness. Everything was designed around the principle that space travel should be comfortable rather than merely functional. Most ships are built like machines, Rodriguez explained as she gave Zara a tour. Efficiency is everything. Every cubic meter serves a purpose. We decided life was too short to spend it in a flying toolbox. The ship's common areas included something called a recreation deck that seemed to serve no military or operational purpose whatsoever. Crew members gathered there to play games, share meals, or simply talk. It was, Rodriguez explained, their attempt to maintain something like a normal social environment, even in the isolation of deep space. Don't you find this wasteful? Zara asked, gesturing to the comfortable seating areas and the large viewing windows that showed the stars wheeling past. Probably, Rodriguez admitted. But we found that crews function better when they're happy. Turns out happiness is a strategic resource. Dr. Sarah introduced Zara to the ship's other medical officer, Dr. Kim Patel, who was fascinated to have a Kytherian patient to study. Not for experimental purposes, he was quick to clarify, but because human medical knowledge of crystalline-based life forms was still limited. We've got files on Kytherian physiology from the Galactic Medical Database, Patel explained, but there's a big difference between reading about something and seeing it in person. Under normal circumstances, Zara would have been reluctant to submit to examination by an alien species. But her experience with Sarah's treatment had demonstrated that human medical science was far more advanced than anyone had suspected. The examination revealed several interesting facts. First, the cellular regeneration therapy had indeed optimized her entire biological system in ways that even Dr. Patel hadn't expected. Second, Kytherians and humans were far more biologically compatible than either species had realized. And third, the regeneration process had somehow enhanced her natural psychic sensitivity. Psychic sensitivity? Zara asked. Kytherians have latent telepathic abilities, Patel explained, showing her the brain scan results. Most of your people never develop them beyond basic emotional empathy. But the regeneration process seems to have enhanced your neural conductivity enough to make actual mind-to-mind communication possible. Is this a side effect you've seen before? Never, Patel admitted. But then, you're the first Kytherian we've treated. Every species responds a little differently to the regeneration process. As the ship traveled through the void between stars, Zara found herself experiencing the enhanced telepathic sensitivity that Patel had detected. She could sense the emotional states of the human crew members around her, feel their contentment, their curiosity, their genuine pleasure at having her aboard. It was unlike anything in her previous experience. Kytherians were not a telepathic species by nature, though they had always been sensitive to emotional resonance. But now she could actually perceive the thoughts and feelings of those around her as clearly as she could see their physical forms. What she discovered amazed her. The humans weren't just pretending to be helpful and compassionate. Their emotional signatures radiated genuine warmth, curiosity, and concern for her well-being. There was no deception, no hidden agenda, no ulterior motive. They had saved her life because it was the right thing to do, and they were helping her now for exactly the same reason. Captain Rodriguez noticed her distraction during the evening meal. Everything all right, warrior? You seem preoccupied. I can sense your emotions, Zara admitted. All of you. It is a side effect of the medical treatment. Ah, Rodriguez nodded understanding. That must be overwhelming. Humans have pretty intense emotional lives. It is not overwhelming, Zara said slowly. It is illuminating. She tried to find words to explain what she was experiencing. In Kytherian society, emotional expression was carefully controlled and formally structured. Personal feelings were considered private matters, not to be shared except in the most intimate circumstances. But the humans around her radiated their emotions freely, creating a complex symphony of feeling that was both chaotic and beautiful. Joy, curiosity, affection, determination, hope, all mixing together in patterns that somehow harmonized despite their apparent contradictions. Your species, she said to Rodriguez, you feel everything so intensely. Sometimes too intensely, Rodriguez admitted with a laugh. Humans are not known for emotional restraint, and yet you function as a society. You cooperate, you build, you explore. How do you manage such passion without it destroying your civilization? Rodriguez considered this question seriously. I think maybe that's exactly how we manage it. We don't try to suppress our emotions or control them. We just channel them into something useful. Over the following days, as the Stubborn Hope made its way toward Kytherian space, Zara observed the crew going about their daily routines. What she saw challenged every assumption her people held about emotional control and social order. The humans argued frequently, expressing disagreement with a directness that would be considered rude in Kytherian society. But these arguments never seemed to damage their relationships or undermine their cooperation. They would debate intensely over dinner and then work together seamlessly on the next shift. They also expressed affection openly, celebrating each other's successes and offering comfort during moments of stress or sadness. When engineer Torres received word that his daughter had been accepted into the academy, the entire crew celebrated as if it were their own achievement. Most remarkably, they seemed to genuinely enjoy each other's company. The recreation periods weren't just downtime between shifts. They were opportunities to share stories, play games, create art, and simply exist together as social beings. "It's inefficient," Zara observed to Sarah during one of their conversations. "What is all of this?" "The emotional expression, the social bonding, the time spent on activities that serve no operational purpose. A Kytherian crew would accomplish the same tasks with half the personnel and twice the speed." "Probably," Sarah agreed. "But would they enjoy it?" The question stopped Zara cold. Enjoyment was not a concept that factored into Kytherian military doctrine. Duty, honor, efficiency, effectiveness, these are the values that mattered. Personal satisfaction was irrelevant as long as objectives were achieved. "Does enjoyment improve performance?" she asked. "Sometimes. People work harder when they care about what they're doing. But that's not really the point." "Then what is the point?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the star field visible through the ship's main viewport. "We have this saying on Earth, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. I think what it means is that existence itself has value, not just the goals we're trying to achieve." She turned to look directly at Zara. "Your people live for duty and honor, right? Those are worthy things. But what do you live for? What makes you glad to be alive?" It was a question Zara had never considered before. In Kytherian culture, personal desires were subordinated to the needs of the hegemony. Individual happiness was less important than collective strength. She had been taught that meaning came from service, that purpose was derived from hierarchy, that fulfillment was achieved through the completion of assigned tasks. But watching the humans around her, she began to understand that there might be other ways to live. Dr. Patel continued to monitor her condition throughout the journey, and the results were consistently remarkable. The cellular regeneration had not just healed her injuries, it had optimized her entire biological system. Her reflexes were faster, her strength was greater, and her endurance had increased dramatically. By Kytherian standards, Patel told her, "You're now operating at approximately 120% of normal efficiency. The regeneration process has essentially given you an upgrade. And the telepathic enhancement? Still developing. Your neural pathways are continuing to adapt to the increased conductivity. In a few weeks, you'll probably be able to communicate mind-to-mind with other telepathic species." The implications of this were staggering. If the human medical technology could enhance Kytherian capabilities to this degree, it could revolutionize their entire military structure. A force of enhanced warriors would be unstoppable in combat. But as she considered the potential applications, Zara found herself thinking not about military advantages, but about the humans who had given her this gift without asking for anything in return. The Stubborn Hope was still 3 days out from Kytherian space when they encountered the pirates. The attack came without warning, as such things usually did. One moment they were traveling peacefully through the void. The next moment the ship's alarms were screaming, and Captain Rodriguez was calling all hands to battle stations. 6 ships, the sensor operator reported. Vorthan configuration, heavily armed. "Same raiders we've been tracking?" Rodriguez asked. "Confirmed. Energy signatures matched the group that hit the merchant convoy in the Epsilon sector." Zara felt the familiar pre-combat tension fill the bridge as the crew prepared for battle. But unlike the cold, disciplined focus she was used to from Kytherian warriors, the humans radiated something different, not just determination, but anger. Righteous anger at those who preyed on the innocent. "Warrior Zara," Rodriguez said formally, "you're a guest on this vessel and have no obligation to participate in this engagement." "Captain Rodriguez," Zara replied, rising to her full height, "I am a warrior of the Kytherian Defense Fleet. If this ship faces battle, then I face battle beside you. In that case, welcome to the party." The Vorthan pirates had chosen their ambush site well. The asteroid field provided cover and sensor interference while limiting the Stubborn Hope's maneuvering options. Their ships were older models, but heavily modified with additional weapons and armor plating. This was clearly an experienced raiding pack that had survived multiple encounters with system defense forces. "They're demanding we surrender our cargo and passengers, communications officer Parks reported. Standard pirate protocol. Captain Rodriguez's response was to increase power to weapons and shields. Send them our standard pirate response, which is, go to hell. Zara watched in fascination as the human crew prepared for combat. There was none of the ritualistic preparation she expected from Kytherian warriors, no formal invocations or ceremonial challenges. Instead, the humans simply got to work with the same efficient professionalism they brought to every other task. Tactical analysis? Rodriguez asked. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, the ship's tactical officer, brought up a holographic display showing the relative positions of all vessels. 6 raiders versus 1 search and rescue ship. They outgun us approximately 3-1. Standard engagement doctrine would be to run. Good thing we're not standard, Rodriguez replied. What are our advantages? Superior technology across all systems. Better trained crew. And Hayes paused, glancing at Zara. We have a Kytherian warrior aboard. Explain that last part. Zara stepped forward. Captain Rodriguez, my people are renowned throughout the galaxy for our combat effectiveness. With your permission, I would like to interface directly with your weapon systems. Interface how? Kytherians can link our nervous systems directly to ship computers through specialized neural interfaces. It allows for reaction times and targeting precision that exceed any artificial intelligence. Rodriguez looked intrigued. Dr. Patel, medical opinion? With her enhanced neural conductivity from the regeneration treatment, Warrior Zara should be able to interface with our systems even without Kytherian-specific hardware, Patel said from his position at the medical station. The connection would be crude, but functional. Risks? Minimal to her. Significant to our weapons systems if she's as good as she claims to be. Zara allowed herself the clicking sound that passed for laughter among her people. Doctor, you're about to see why Kytherians are feared across the galaxy. The interface process was indeed crude compared to purpose-built Kytherian systems, but it worked. Zara placed her hands on the tactical console and felt her consciousness expand to encompass the ship's entire weapons array. Sensors became extensions of her awareness. Targeting computers became part of her thought process, and the weapons themselves became additional limbs under her direct control. The sensation was intoxicating. Enhanced by the human medical treatment, her mind processed information faster than she had ever experienced. She could track all 6 enemy ships simultaneously, calculate their movement patterns, and predict their tactical responses before their own computers had finished the same calculations. Incredible, Hayes breathed, watching his displays as targeting solutions appeared faster than he could follow. Her reaction time is literally superhuman. Contact in 30 seconds, Parks announced. Rodriguez settled into her command chair with the calm confidence of a veteran spacer. Warrior Zara, are you ready? I am ready, Captain. Then, let's show these pirates what happens when they mess with innocent travelers. The battle began as most space engagements did, with a furious exchange of energy weapons fire that lit up the asteroid field like a miniature star. The Vorthan ships moved in the practice formation of experienced raiders, trying to surround the stubborn Hope and overwhelm her defenses through superior numbers. They hadn't counted on Zara. The first Vorthan ship died before its crew realized they were outmatched. Zara's enhanced reflexes allowed her to target the Raider's power core through a gap in its armor plating that existed for less than 2 seconds as the ship maneuvered. The resulting explosion lit up the asteroid field and sent debris cascading in all directions. One down, Hayes reported unnecessarily. Everyone on the bridge had felt the ship shudder as the weapon's fire passed uncomfortably close. The remaining pirates adjusted their tactics, recognizing that they faced something beyond their experience. Instead of maintaining formation, they scattered and tried to use the asteroids as cover while mounting hit-and-run attacks. It didn't help. Zara tracked them through the sensor maze of the asteroid field with predatory efficiency. Her enhanced awareness allowed her to process the chaotic sensor data and distinguish between the pirates' ships and the background interference. When they emerged from cover to attack, she was waiting for them. The second ship lasted long enough to fire 3 shots before Zara put a precisely targeted energy beam through its command section. The third ship tried to ram the stubborn Hope in desperation, but Zara simply destroyed its engines and left it drifting helplessly. "This is incredible," Rodriguez said, watching the tactical display as Zara systematically dismantled the pirate formation. "I've never seen weapons handling like this." "Neither have I," Hayes admitted. "She's not just targeting their ships, she's targeting specific systems. Look at this. She's disabled their communications without destroying their life support. That takes surgical precision." The fourth and fifth ships fell within minutes of each other, caught in a crossfire as Zara used the asteroid field geometry to her advantage. The Stubborn Hope's weapons reached out through the void with impossible accuracy, finding weak points in armor and exploiting them with ruthless efficiency. The last pirate ship, realizing that the situation had become hopeless, attempted to flee. But Zara had anticipated this and had already positioned the Stubborn Hope to block the only clear exit from the asteroid field. "Pirate vessel," Rodriguez broadcast on an open channel, "you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the galactic conventions on prisoners of war." The response was a desperate barrage of weapons fire that Zara deflected effortlessly with precisely timed shield modulations. When the shooting stopped, she had disabled the raiders' engines, weapons, and life support, leaving them completely helpless. 6 ships neutralized, Hayes reported. 5 destroyed, 1 captured. Total engagement time, 11 minutes, 37 seconds. Rodriguez looked around the bridge at her crew, all of whom were staring at Zara with expressions of awe. "Warrior, that was the most impressive display of combat skill I've ever witnessed." Zara disconnected from the weapon's interface, feeling slightly disoriented as her consciousness returned to normal parameters. These pirates were competent, but not exceptional. Any Kytherian warrior could have achieved similar results. "Any Kytherian warrior enhanced with human medical technology," Dr. Patel corrected. "Your performance just exceeded baseline Kytherian capabilities by approximately 40%. As the crew secured the captured pirate ship and processed the prisoners, Zara found herself reflecting on what had just occurred. The battle had been routine by Kytherian standards, but the humans' reaction to it was anything but routine. Instead of simply celebrating their victory, they immediately began rescue operations for the surviving pirates. Medical teams were dispatched to treat the wounded. Engineering crews worked to restore life support to the damaged ship, and communication specialists attempted to contact the pirates' families to notify them of the capture. "You are treating your enemies better than they treated their victims," Zara observed to Captain Rodriguez. "They're not our enemies anymore," Rodriguez replied. "They're prisoners. That makes them our responsibility. This seems inefficient. Maybe, but it's who we are." Dr. Patel approached them with a medical scanner in his hand and a puzzled expression on his face. "Warrior Zara, I need to run some additional tests. The neural interface you just performed shouldn't have been possible with your current physiology." "Explain." "The amount of data processing you just accomplished would normally require direct cybernetic implants and years of training to achieve safely. You did it with nothing but an enhanced nervous system and natural talent." As Patel ran his tests, the results only deepened the mystery. The cellular regeneration treatment had not just enhanced Zara's existing capabilities, it had fundamentally altered her neural architecture in ways that were theoretically impossible. "Your brain is literally rewiring itself," Patel told her. "New neural pathways are forming, existing connections are being optimized, and your processing speed is increasing exponentially." "Is this dangerous?" "I don't know. We're in completely uncharted territory here. You might be the first being in galactic history to undergo this kind of enhancement." Word of the battle had spread throughout the ship, and Zara found herself the center of attention wherever she went. The human crew members approached her with a mixture of respect and curiosity, eager to learn about Kytherian combat techniques and military philosophy. She tried to explain the principles of crystalline warfare to Engineer Torres, but found that human and Kytherian approaches to combat were so fundamentally different that translation was almost impossible. "Kytherians fight as individuals," she explained. "Each warrior is a complete combat system, capable of independent action across multiple battle domains. Humans seem to fight as a collective organism." "How, what do you mean?" "During the battle, I observed your crew's behavior. Each person performed their assigned function, but they also anticipated the needs of others and provided support without being asked. Captain Rodriguez did not need to give constant orders because everyone understood their role in the larger pattern. Torres nodded. We call it fighting as one. Individual skill is important, but teamwork wins battles. Yet I achieved superior results fighting alone. This time, Torres agreed. But what if there had been 20 pirate ships? Or 50? Even enhanced Kytherian reflexes have limits. It was a sobering thought. Zara had been so impressed with her own performance that she hadn't considered the scalability problem. Human tactics might be less individually impressive, but they could be expanded almost indefinitely by adding more personnel and resources. The conversation was interrupted by an announcement from the bridge. All hands, this is the captain. We have just received a priority communication from the Kytherian Defense Fleet. Fleet Admiral Korax requests immediate conference with Warrior Zara. Zara made her way to the bridge, where a massive holographic projection showed the stern visage of Fleet Admiral Korax, Supreme Commander of the Kytherian military forces. His four arms were positioned in the formal stance of official communication, and his expression was unreadable. Warrior Zara, Korax said without preamble, you will explain your current status and location. Admiral, I am aboard the Terran vessel Stubborn Hope, en route to Kytherian space following my rescue from the Kepler system. You are traveling voluntarily on an alien vessel? Yes, Admiral. For purposes of cultural exchange and diplomatic observation. Korax's expression shifted slightly, indicating either surprise or displeasure. You will also explain the sensor readings transmitted by Captain Thex. His report indicates that you have undergone significant physiological enhancement. The Terrans employed advanced medical technology to heal my injuries. There were beneficial side effects. Beneficial side effects that allowed you to single-handedly destroy a pirate squadron 23 minutes ago. Zara felt a chill run through her crystalline skeleton. If the fleet was monitoring her performance that closely, they obviously had more than casual interest in her current status. The engagement was successful, Admiral. No friendly casualties were sustained. Indeed, Warrior Zara, you will report to Fleet Command immediately upon your return. The hegemony has questions about this Terran medical technology. The communication ended abruptly, leaving Zara staring at the empty space where the Admiral's image had been. Captain Rodriguez, who had observed the entire exchange, looked concerned. That didn't sound entirely friendly, she observed. Kytherian military protocol is not designed to be friendly, Zara replied. But, privately, she was troubled by the Admiral's tone. She had expected to be debriefed about her rescue and medical treatment, but the urgency of the summons suggested something more significant was at stake. Dr. Patel approached with the results of his latest tests. Warrior Zara, the neural enhancement is accelerating. At current rates, your processing capability will exceed any known biological intelligence within weeks. That seems concerning. It's unprecedented. We're talking about evolutionary changes that normally take thousands of years happening in a matter of days. Captain Rodriguez joined the conversation. What are the risks? Unknown, Patel admitted. She could develop abilities beyond anything we've seen before, or her nervous system could overload and shut down completely. We're in uncharted territory. Zara felt a weight settling on her shoulders that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. The humans had saved her life without asking for anything in return, but their generosity had transformed her into something that might be seen as a threat by her own people. Doctor, she said quietly, is it possible to reverse the enhancement process? I don't know. Why would you want to? She looked around the bridge at the humans who had become her unlikely friends, then back at Patel. Because I fear that my people may see this as an act of aggression rather than kindness. Your people would consider medical treatment to be aggressive? My people would consider the creation of super soldiers using alien technology to be a potential threat to galactic security. The implications of this statement settled over the bridge crew like a heavy blanket. Captain Rodriguez was the first to speak. Are you saying that helping you might have created a diplomatic incident? I'm saying that helping me might have created a war. As the Stubborn Hope continued its journey toward Kytherian space, the crew found themselves grappling with consequences they had never intended. What had seemed like a simple act of humanitarian aid had somehow evolved into something with potentially galaxy-spanning implications. Dr. Patel worked feverishly to understand the enhancement process, hoping to find a way to control or reverse it if necessary. Engineer Torres began studying Kytherian technology, trying to understand how their weapon systems could be improved by neural interface techniques. Most importantly, Captain Rodriguez opened a secure communication channel to Terran Command, warning them that humanity's newest diplomatic contact might be about to become their newest military adversary. Command, this is Rodriguez aboard the Stubborn Hope. We have a situation that requires immediate attention. Our rescue of a Kytherian warrior has resulted in unintended consequences that may affect diplomatic relations with the hegemony. The response came back within hours, and it carried orders that surprised everyone aboard. Stubborn Hope This is Admiral Chun at Terran Command. You are ordered to proceed directly to the Kytherian capital world and present yourself to their military leadership. Full diplomatic immunity is granted to your crew and passenger. You are to offer complete cooperation with any Kytherian investigation. Rodriguez read the orders twice before sharing them with her senior staff. Well, she said finally, looks like we're going to find out exactly how the Kytherians feel about humans meddling in their internal affairs. Zara, meanwhile, was struggling with her own dilemma. Her enhanced capabilities continued to develop, and she could feel her mind expanding in ways that were both exhilarating and terrifying. She was becoming something new, something that had never existed before in galactic history. The question was whether that something would be seen as a gift or a threat by the powers that controlled her civilization. As the ship approached the border of Kytherian space, long-range sensors detected a massive fleet deployment waiting for them. Dozens of battle cruisers, supported by heavy dreadnoughts and carrier groups, had taken position along their projected course. That's not a welcoming committee, Hayes observed grimly. That's an invasion fleet. Captain Rodriguez studied the tactical display with professional interest. No, it's a demonstration. They want us to know exactly how outgunned we are before we enter their space. Are we going to comply with their demands? Rodriguez looked at Zura, who was standing quietly beside the tactical console with an expression of deep thought on her crystalline features. Warrior, Rodriguez said formally, you're our guest, but you're also the one with the most to lose here. What do you recommend? Zara was quiet for a long moment, then straightened to her full imposing height. Captain Rodriguez, I recommend we proceed as planned. If my people wish to see this as an act of aggression, then let them. But they will also see that humans do not back down from doing what they believe is right. Even if it means war. Especially if it means war. Because that is when character is truly tested. As the Stubborn Hope crossed into Kytherian space, escorted by a fleet that could have conquered star systems, Zara realized that she was about to become the center of a confrontation that would define the relationship between humans and Kytherians for generations to come. The only question was whether the relationship would be built on mutual respect or mutual destruction. For the capital world of Kythros, Prime hung before them like a jewel carved from living crystal. Massive spires rose from the planet's surface, reaching into the atmosphere with impossible grace, their faceted surfaces reflecting the light of the system's 3 suns in patterns that hurt human eyes to observe directly. The entire world seemed to pulse with a subtle energy that resonated through space itself. Beautiful, Captain Rodriguez murmured, gazing at the tactical display. And heavily fortified. Indeed, the planet's defenses were as impressive as its architecture. Orbital defense platforms surrounded Kythros Prime in multiple layers, their weapons arrays capable of sterilizing entire fleets. Shield generators created an energy barrier that would deflect anything short of a direct stellar bombardment. And, moving among the defenses were patrol ships whose very presence radiated lethal capability. The Kytherian escort fleet had grown during their journey through the system, accumulating vessels until the Stubborn Hope was surrounded by enough firepower to conquer a sector. Yet the humans aboard remained remarkably calm, treating the situation as if they were attending a diplomatic reception rather than potentially flying into a trap. Zara found this human composure both admirable and incomprehensible. Any rational species would be terrified by such a display of military might. But The crew of the Stubborn Hope simply went about their duties with the same professional efficiency they brought to every situation. Incoming transmission from Fleet Command, Communications Officer Parks announced. The main viewer shimmered and resolved into the image of Fleet Admiral Corax, his massive form filling the screen with imposing presence. Behind him, Zara could see the command center of the Eternal Crystal, the hegemony's most powerful dreadnought. Terran vessel, Corax said without preamble. You will follow the designated approach vector to Orbital Station 7. Any deviation from the prescribed course will be considered a hostile act. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward with the same easy confidence she had shown when facing the pirates. Admiral Corax, this is Captain Maria Rodriguez of the Stubborn Hope. We understand your security concerns and will comply with all reasonable requests. You will comply with all requests, reasonable or otherwise, Corax replied coldly. You are entering Kytherian space under sufferance, carrying technology that may represent a threat to galactic security. With respect, Admiral, we're carrying a passenger who required medical assistance. That's hardly a threatening act. Corax's forearms shifted into a configuration that Zara recognized as barely controlled aggression. Captain Rodriguez, you have taken a Kytherian warrior and enhanced her capabilities beyond anything in recorded history. If this was not intended as a demonstration of Terran military potential, then your species is far more naive than our intelligence estimates suggest. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in uncomfortable silence. Rodriguez turned to Zara with a questioning expression. Admiral Corax is direct in his communication style, Zara said diplomatically. He is also not wrong about the potential implications of my enhancement. Dr. Patel looked up from his medical scanner. The neural development is still accelerating. Your processing speed has increased another 15% since this morning. Is there any way to control it? Not without risking permanent damage to your nervous system. We're dealing with quantum-level changes in your brain chemistry. Any attempt to reverse the process could be fatal. As the Stubborn Hope followed the designated approach vector toward Orbital Station 7, Zara felt the weight of expectations pressing down on her. She was no longer just a warrior returning from an unexpected mission. She had become a symbol of something larger. The potential for cooperation between species were the catalyst for interstellar conflict. The orbital station was a marvel of Kytherian engineering, a crystalline construct that seemed to have grown rather than been built. Its faceted surfaces caught and reflected the sunlight in patterns that served both aesthetic and defensive purposes. Weapons emplacements were integrated so seamlessly into the design that they appeared to be decorative elements. Docking was accomplished under the watchful gaze of dozens of guard ships, their weapons tracking the human vessel with mechanical precision. As the Stubborn Hope's engines wound down, Zara could feel the subtle vibrations that indicated the station's defensive fields had been activated around them. Well, Rodriguez said, studying the readings on her command display, we're officially trapped. Those containment fields would stop anything short of a nova from escaping. Are you concerned? Zara asked. Professionally? Yes. Personally? No. If your people wanted us dead, they would have destroyed us in deep space. This is political theater. A new voice came over the communication system, speaking in the formal cadences of Kytherian high protocol. Terran vessel Stubborn Hope, prepare to receive a boarding party for official inspection and escort duties. The airlock cycled open to admit a delegation of Kytherian officials whose very presence radiated authority. At their head was Grand Diplomat Vex, whose crystalline form showed the complex geometric patterns that indicated high political rank. Behind him came military attachés, scientific observers, and what Zara recognized as intelligence operatives. Captain Rodriguez met them in the main corridor with her senior staff arranged in formal order behind her. The contrast between the two species was striking. The tall, angular Kytherians with their crystalline transparency and the compact, solid humans with their organic warmth. Grand Diplomat Vex, Rodriguez said, offering the human gesture of greeting. Welcome aboard the Stubborn Hope. Vex studied the extended hand with apparent interest before replicating the gesture with one of his forearms. Captain Rodriguez, your species' custom of physical contact during formal meetings is noted and appreciated. We're honored to have the opportunity for diplomatic contact with the Kytherian hegemony. Indeed, though the circumstances are somewhat unusual, Vex's attention shifted to Zara, who stood at formal attention in her position as honor passenger. Warrior Zara, the hegemony rejoices in your safe return. Grand Diplomat, I live to serve the crystal. As do we all, though your recent experiences have raised questions that require careful examination. Dr. Patel stepped forward with his medical scanner and datapad. Grand Diplomat, if I may present our medical records for Warrior Zara's treatment. Doctor, Vex paused, consulting a small device. Patel, your findings will be reviewed by our scientific council. However, the hegemony's primary concern is not medical, but strategic. The delegation was given a complete tour of the Stubborn Hope, examining everything from the propulsion systems to the recreational facilities. Zara watched their reactions carefully, noting the surprise that registered when they observed the human approach to spacecraft design. Your vessel is configured for long-term habitation, noted military attaché Krev. This suggests extensive exploration capabilities. Humans tend to go places where others fear to tread, Rodriguez replied. Our ships are built to sustain crews for extended periods in hostile environments, such as deep space rescue operations and systems claimed by other species. The question carried implications that made the bridge crew tense slightly. Rodriguez, however, answered with characteristic directness. We respond to distress calls regardless of political boundaries. Saving lives transcends territorial disputes. An admirable philosophy, potentially problematic from a diplomatic standpoint. The inspection continued for several hours, with the Kytherian delegation examining every aspect of the ship's capabilities. They paid particular attention to the medical facilities, where Dr. Patel provided detailed explanations of the cellular regeneration technology. This equipment could enhance any biological organism, observed Chief Scientist Yan. The military applications are obvious. The medical applications are more important, Patel replied firmly. This technology has the potential to eliminate disease and extend lifespans across multiple species. And you simply give it away? Knowledge belongs to everyone. Scientific advancement should benefit all sentient beings. The concept seemed to genuinely puzzle the Kytherian scientist. In their society, technological advancement was carefully controlled and distributed according to strict hierarchical principles. The idea of freely sharing revolutionary medical technology was as alien to them as breathing water. As the inspection concluded, Grand Diplomat Vex requested a private meeting with Captain Rodriguez and Zara. They gathered in the ship's small conference room, where Vex activated what Zara recognized as a privacy field generator. What I am about to discuss, Vex began, is classified at the highest levels of hegemony security. Warrior Zara, your enhanced capabilities have been detected by our long-range sensors across multiple star systems. How is that possible? Rodriguez asked. Kytherian neural activity generates quantum resonances that can be detected at considerable distances. Warrior Zara's enhanced brain is now producing resonances approximately 50 times stronger than baseline Kytherian levels. Zara felt a chill of understanding. The entire hegemony can track my location. Worse, every major galactic power with adequate sensor technology can track your location. The Vorthans, the Centauran Republic, the Zalakian Empire, they all know that something unprecedented has occurred in Kytherian space. Rodriguez leaned back in her chair, processing the implications. So, this isn't just about medical treatment anymore. It's about the balance of power in the galaxy. Precisely. Captain Rodriguez, your species has inadvertently created what may be the most strategically significant individual in galactic history. The question now is what we do about it. What are the options? Zara asked. Vex was quiet for a moment before answering. The Hegemony Council has identified 3 possible courses of action. First, we could demand that your enhancement be reversed, returning you to baseline Kytherian capabilities. Dr. Patel says that might be fatal.